1. Okay, so years ago I was working for a government facility, which was undergoing a massive transition as majority of the employees were reaching retirement age. This place only did a mass hiring to replace people once every 15 years or so. One of the new hires was coming in to replace the current training department head, and was given the title of Deputy Department Manager, while he trained for the new role and prepared to take over. We'll call him Egg. Dude was the biggest prick I've ever encountered. He was constantly finding reasons to write people up and spoke down to everyone with a lesser title than himself. His first actions as a deputy manager was to change the way we did training and change the hiring process to micromanage who could get hired to this already in-depth vetting process. Job required a top-secret clearance. I was part of the class previous to these changes. Training could take upwards of 3 years to complete, and he immediately had it out for anyone from our group that didn't meet his criteria. One day we all started getting called one by one into the training manager's office for a meeting with the department head, HR, and Egg. Now I know what is going on, as the people getting called are the problems Egg has been trying to get rid of, so I pull him aside. Hey Egg, I have an idea of what's happening. But just so I'm not blindsided, are you guys writing us up for something? If so, what incident, so I can make sure I know what went wrong?
I'm not allowed to talk about that as per the employee handbook. Only your direct manager can discuss that, and as deputy manager, I'm not your direct manager.
Cue malicious compliance. So I get called into a meeting, and yep, they're writing us up en masse for the thing we had already been written up for. Apparently Egg had convinced HR that writing everyone up again for all the offenses in a single write-up would make it easier to track. This place could only hold a write-up against you for termination purposes for 1 year. This scheme effectively reset the clock on a lot of those previous write-ups. In my meeting was department head, HR, and Egg, with a huge grin on his face. I looked at HR and then looked at Egg, and asked HR why he was here. They replied to observe. I asked, but doesn't the handbook say that only my direct management chain and HR are privy to these meetings? If so, I'm not comfortable with Egg being here and would like him to leave. His demeanor instantly changed, especially since HR agreed with me and had him leave the meeting. Now without him there, I was able to make a case as to why the new write-up was invalid and violated the handbook. Department head had no clue, or at least feigned it, that we had already been written up for these offenses. Ultimately got the whole lot of the write-ups for everyone tossed out. Made myself target numero uno for this guy, who eventually got me fired a couple of years later, but not before I got him demoted. 2. So at the start of freshman year of high school, I had left my group of friends from middle school. It was pretty hard for me because I was really attached to them, but they were terrible friends. Always leaving me out of stuff, making fun of me for not having any other friends but them after telling them to stop. Anytime I would try to talk to them seriously about something I had a problem with, it would always turn into an argument. Also, couldn't talk to them about any struggles I was facing. I resorted to writing a diary in my notes to vent. I was one of the people they knew the longest, yet they would plan hangouts with people they had just met that year without me. It was always someone other than me, and I was sick and tired of it, and it lasted for a while. I figured high school would be a good time to leave them if any more problems occurred. I used to tell them, and they thought I was joking. Towards the end of the first month, I went to my first homecoming game. That day I truly felt left out. No one would listen to a word I said, and I just stood around them stupidly. I walked off on my own, and not a single person looked for me. I realized I was alone, and it may seem a bit corny, but I cried on the bleachers watching the football game. Luckily, it was raining that day, so no one noticed. The last straw was a few days after the homecoming game. One day in gym, a few of us were talking about how our friend group wouldn't last, and they were going to make a new group chat without everyone just in case we did. That was toxic in and of itself, but of course I didn't care. I asked if I was going to get added and no one was answering. I kept pestering them until finally got my answer, and they said yes, they'd add me. The same day after school, no group chat was made. That's what I thought. They started sending screenshots of the group chat they made to our main group chat, talking about it. I got so mad they added the whole friend group except one other person that they also treated like crap, which happened to be my best friend. I saw that they added people they said they wouldn't add, and that got me. I sent a voice note telling them that I was done and left the group chat. They didn't open the message, and since it was a Snapchat group chat, the message disappeared. One girl called me who was inside of her own drama with someone and asked if I was okay. I appreciated that she actually cared, so I stayed friends with her. The next day at school, I avoided all of them. One other girl talked to me, but a few days later she decided that she wanted to stop being friends with me because I called her fake as a joke. At that point I was over it and cried hard when I went to the counselor and asked them to take me out of the classes with them in it, especially the gym class where the most of them were in. The next months were actual hell. I went to some other girls that I talked to in middle school but wasn't really close with, and to be frank, I was a little mean to them because I was a follower. But I'm so lucky they decided to be friends with me. I still had a few friends, including my best friend, who also has problems with them, but hers are a whole different story. They treated her worse than me. With my new friends, I felt extremely better with them. Still, I ate lunches in the library, or just wandered the halls because none of my friends had lunch with me. My old friend group was so bitter that I was making friends that they'd talk aloud around me, saying how if they stopped being friends with people, they wouldn't find other people as replacements and they'd just stay alone. When I heard that, I didn't do anything because I really didn't want to, but it still annoyed me. There were multiple times I would get into arguments with them, and they'd start calling me fat, saying how I need to run up and down the stairs to lose weight. One time they made a FaceTime with a mutual friend, saying we need to solve our beef. There was one other girl I particularly hated, because she started problems with me when I didn't even talk to her. When it was my turn to talk, she kept interrupting me, and we started cussing each other out. The same thing happened the next day because one girl who had a problem with my other friend wasn't there and wanted to talk to her. I stood my ground, but after the call, I got into a bad mental state. I cried many times because of my ruined self-esteem. I would be counting down until it was time for bed so I could just escape the terrible reality I was in. I could write 3 pages to all they did to me, but let me just get to the point. Fast forward to the next year, we were all sophomores. I still didn't like them, but I didn't care about them as much as I did before. There was still the problematic toxic friend group. Nothing happened for the entire year until towards the end. It was the last 3 weeks of school, and we finally had gotten our yearbooks. I had a class in the hallway they were in handing them out and wanted to use the bathroom. The bathroom in that hallway was full of people, so I walked into another to use that bathroom. Surprisingly, it was empty, and I sat in the stall. Suddenly, I hear people come in. I didn't say a single word because I recognized the voices. It was a few of the people from the other friend group. I didn't dare leave the stall. I listened in to their conversation. They were talking about smoking a cart, and had one of them take it out and take a hit. After they left, I went to my classroom and told my friends what happened, laughing about it. That same day after school, I started thinking about it. I decided to anonymously report them, just because I felt like it. The next day, I got called in the office because of attendance. The vice principal told me that he checked on the cameras and just guessed it was me who snitched on them. He was surprised I did it because he happened to be the vice principal when I was in middle school and thought we were still friends. I told him it's been a while since then, and then told him about what happened in the bathroom. He told me that nothing would probably happen because there was no definite proof, but he would call them in. Surprise, surprise! The next day during lunch, one of the girls who was in the bathroom was leaving school and she looked mad. I had a feeling it was because of my snitching. She didn't come to school for a week. I didn't link it to the bathroom because one of the girls that was in the bathroom was still at school. But after the girl came back, I found out that they did indeed get suspended because one of the girls they smoked with snitched on all of them when she got called in. I did not feel bad at all and felt great satisfaction. I don't care about messing anyone's school record because one of them already got suspended for fighting over a man. Plus, they're bullies. Technically, I didn't do anything wrong because I was just fulfilling my duty as a student and keeping the school drug-free. That's what you get for messing with me and my friends. 3. I'm an administrator for an institution that works in the public sector. The hierarchy of this structure is slightly complicated because of the nature of the job, criminal justice. I oversee around 20 employees. Those employees are supervised by 4 individuals who rank for 4 different shifts. Each supervisor has another ranked, lesser person to assist them, so basically each shift has a primary and a secondary supervisor. They all report to one individual who ranks beneath me, and I oversee all of them. I report to the individual in charge of the whole institution, and that person reports to an elected official who manages the entire department. The tricky part is the department has 2 divisions, and while this elected official oversees all of it, they really only run the other division. We have an employee who is very intelligent. However, his book smart is vast and his actual experience in this line of work is minimal. He is ranked assistant on 1 shift, so he works with the supervisor of 1 shift. He sends weekly emails complaining about the other shifts and their mess-ups. He will write down anything from someone forgetting to remove trash, to someone making an error on a form, or even someone interpreting a directive differently than him. He makes it clear that his way is the correct way and anyone not doing things his way should be written up. Shouts accountability constantly or sends condescending emails after a directive is put in place, usually because someone messed up, and advises me to, "You need to speak directly with the individual that caused this change, otherwise they won't have a clue it's because of them." Basically telling me and the head administrator how we should be doing our jobs. He targets employees and complains about them, demanding demotion and accountability, and badmouths us for doing nothing about poor performance. Meanwhile, I have submitted multiple demotion requests and write-ups to HR for accountability, but the union steps in and dismisses many of them. This individual does not know or see any of this because personnel issues are not open discussions, and it really isn't his business what discipline is put in place, but is being done. He just does not see it or hear about it to protect the privacy of that employee. Recently, he has started attacking a shift supervisor on the opposite shift. Anytime something is off, he sends an email with her opus accusations to that supervisor, all of which turn out to not even be true, or from that shift to begin with. He ranted about how he never sees the administrators, and in order to run a good facility, administrators need to be visible and involved on every shift, even citing, "It's not hard to come in late and stay late to speak to your employees," basically telling us how we should be doing our jobs. He wants monthly supervisor meetings instead of quarterly because this will eliminate misunderstandings or directives that the other shifts are doing wrong. Little does he know we had monthly meetings for a long time and no one was able to make them, and nothing came of the meetings, so they requested quarterly meetings. I agree that visibility is important, and I stop in twice a month with the night shift to check in and see day shift every day, but he never gets up to come speak to me during my rounds. He sits and reads or plays on his phone, which is allowed due to the nature of the job. He commented, "I can't recall the last time I saw any of you," demanding that admins come in and micromanage better. I was in a week prior, so that kinda upset me as he won't acknowledge me. So, I started coming in more and told him, "Why are you sitting? You should be managing. There are things to be cleaned and sorted. You can count inventory of supplies. We don't pay you to sit around." This upset him because we do pay them to sit around until needed, if they have an intake. I then asked him why he was sitting in a restricted area. He stated it was quiet in there, and common sense shows he's not violating the rule because he didn't go past a specific point so he can sit there. It's a corridor leading to another part of the building not owned by us. I read him the directive, which states, "At no point should anyone for any reason go beyond this door unless in an emergency evacuation situation." I asked him again what was so difficult to understand about this request. He still found nothing wrong with going past the door to sit on the other side. I told him he has demanded accountability, so he would be getting a write-up for not following the directive. He flipped out, saying it was such a minor thing, and I reminded him of all the little minor things he complains about with the other shifts. I continued to come in and micromanage everyone. A few employees asked why I was there all the time because we hired supervisors to manage the shift. So, did we not think they were capable of doing the job? I advised that some people felt that they could manage the shift and wanted administrators to come in more. The complaining individual got several more write-ups, one major one for an almost fireable offense, showing that maybe, in fact, he didn't have all the answers. He sent an email to my supervisor complaining that I was micromanaging and being extremely anal with the minor write-up infractions that he now says aren't that big to even be reprimanded for. My supervisor said, "This is what you wanted, is it not? You complained that you wanted us to be seen and manage more and hold people accountable when they mess up." The complaining individual wanted other people written up, but not himself because he was never wrong. Or that's what he implied. I went back to my regular twice-a-month check-in, which is just stopping in to see how things are going on the shift. The complainer has been quiet for now, sitting inside the allowable room, reading. His superiority complex will be his downfall. I reminded him that the newest employees are the ones we can learn the most from, and he needs to value knowledge he can get from anyone, regardless of their experience or rank status. I'm an administrator, and I tell staff I am always learning, and will continue to learn from everyone. 1. Back in the 80s, I was a university student majoring in English in a smallish school. I was one of a small number of students with my own computer, and got to know a lot about word processors, desktop publishing software, and more generally MS-DOS, the text-based precursor operating system to Windows. Many of the professors in the department were just starting to buy computers to do their research and writing, and so I often offered to help them with buying and setting them up, as well as helping them understand DOS and using their word processors. I and a few friends took over editing and publishing the annual literary magazine, and we also started a department newsletter. I was editor of both. I also served as a student representative on the faculty council. I believed in being useful, and it didn't hurt that the professors all offered to be reference for me in exchange. However, for some reason, one of the professors in the department took umbrage with me for all this. He was usually very friendly to all the other students, but when he'd see me, he'd just brusquely pass by. Then, in my senior year, he became the department head, and that's when things came to a head. One day, one of the professors asked me to format his forthcoming book for publication. There was a paid research associate in the department, but she didn't know how to use desktop publishing software or how to do layout, whereas I, as editor of the magazine and newsletter, had a lot of experience with both. However, she complained to the department head that I was taking her job. She knew he didn't like me, so she was stirring things up deliberately. While he came running, literally, he ran up to me and started berating me in front of the research associate and the professor who asked me the favor. He ranted about the things I was doing and said, "You're too involved in everything and it isn't appropriate. You're just an undergrad here, and I don't appreciate you undermining the research associate." He didn't give me a chance to reply, just turned on his heel and strode off back to his office, no doubt feeling good about bullying a student. Cue malicious compliance. Since he felt I was too involved in everything, I stopped helping everyone. Printer jammed? Sorry. Lost your Word file? That's a shame. Having trouble making a backup of your novel? Wish I knew what to tell you. Need to install that new hard drive? Guess you're gonna have to bring it into the computer shop and pay. department newsletter, which the president of the university had personally congratulated me on, ceased publication. After a few weeks with things having ground to a halt, it hit the fan. The other professors all took my side and called for an emergency faculty council meeting. Even though I was the student rep, it was closed doors, so I never got to hear what happened. The minutes of the meeting merely said discussion regarding research activities. It lasted for well over an hour, and when it was over, the department head called me and invited me into his office. Once again, he did all the talking. But this time he told me he regretted his harsh words, offered a shamefaced apology, told me that he appreciated all the help I had given his colleagues in the past, and expressed his wish that we could put this unfortunate misunderstanding behind us. We shook hands and parted as enemies. Things went back to normal. I finished my undergraduate degree and stuck around to do my master's. I continued to do what I always did, and even helped launch a writing tutorial center in the department that is still operating 35 years later. 5. This is a small bit of maliciousness that happened years ago, but to this day it's still one of my favorite stories to tell. So there needs to be a bit of context to this one for you to understand the beauty of what happened. I was in a traditional kung fu school for 9 years. My Sifu, teacher, was one of the most honest and respectable men I have ever known. In this school there was a certain etiquette you had to follow out of both respect for the art and your fellow students. We had things like bowing before entering doorways, always facing north to take off our sash, stuff like that. Keep in mind that we weren't just teaching students here, we fostered a family, and treated one another as if we were all brothers and sisters. One of the rules was that men wore their sashes on the right while women wore their sashes on the left. I am a trans male, and my Sifu was one of the very few people who knew this. Also, I present very androgynous. My Sifu and I talked about it when I came out to him because I was concerned about how it would affect the etiquette of the school, and we both agreed that neither of us cared how I wore my sash, so I just kept it on the left out of habit. Very friendly conversation. At my school, we did a traditional performance every year for Chinese New Year called a lion head dance. If you took it up online, it's both intriguing and hilarious to watch, because it's essentially two people underneath a large, fluffy papier-mâché lion. We would do this for restaurants, schools, or event centers. We even got to perform for the Chinese consulate at one time. Basically, one person is the head of the lion while the other operates the tail, and we work together to cleanse the space to ensure a year of good fortune for the establishment, and scare away evil spirits. Everyone always loved these events, and it was some of the funniest performances I've ever done. There's drums, dancing, firecrackers, the whole deal. I was almost always in a line with my Sifu because we made a surprisingly good team. One year we went to this little Chinese restaurant who hired us to do our normal thing. We got there, we set up, lay out the equipment, and begin stretching before the performance. This performance was one line with me in the tail and my Sifu in the head. As we're talking and getting ready, suddenly the owner of the establishment walks over to my Sifu and I with the most disappointed look on his face. My Sifu asks if everything is all right, and this guy just started in on him through gritted teeth. He originally asked why I was standing there, and my Sifu, while confused, said that I was his tail for tonight. The owner said that this was highly disrespectful because a woman shouldn't be in the performance and should never be in the line. My Sifu, with a now deadpan look on his face, chuckled and basically said, "We don't live in the days of Chinese dynasties anymore, sir. This is my student. I am their teacher, and they are more than welcome to perform and represent my school." The owner kept going off about how it's disrespectful to the culture, and how I shouldn't even be in the show because I was a female. My Sifu looked back at me, looked at the owner, got a cheeky little grin on his face and said, "No problem." He turned to me, grabbed my sash, twisted it to my right side, bowed and addressed me as Didi, meaning younger brother, before turning back to the owner. He had the most shocked and appalled look on his face, and it took me everything I had not to bust up laughing. The owner huffed, told us to just do the show and stormed off. And just as a little cherry on top of this interaction, I went to get the till and my Sifu stopped me, motioning for me to get into the head of the line. So, I got to lead the show that night, and the owner just had to sit back and deal with the fact that he didn't get his way by throwing a sexist fit. The year after, we got hired by the same restaurant, and my Sifu, instead of rejecting it, made absolutely sure that the performance that night was all female students. The owner didn't say a word. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge's Ice Cream, episode 366. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And before we go on, note about that, I got a 3-day suspension from Reddit because I contact so many people privately, respectfully, to ask their permission to use their stories. So I guess you're getting punished for doing the right thing now. It's nice when that happens, isn't it? Okay, that's all I'm going to grumble about it. Should be up in 3 days, and I guess maybe I send less messages over the course of more days or something. That's maybe the only solution I can think of. It's not like it's just a bot account. You look there, I do respond to posts occasionally as well, and I do give people advice when they're asking questions on various subreddits. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes. If you'd like to get early access to the videos, you can support me on my Patreon page, which is linked for you in the description. You'll also find a link there to the Hellfreezer Discord server, as well as a link to the Hellfreezer merchandise store. Do I have a link to threads in there? I'm not sure. I should probably add that. I'll have to check. If you really enjoyed today's video, then why not leave a tip? You can do that by clicking on the heart with the $sign underneath the video. That is never required, but I very much do appreciate the help, should you choose to do so. Okay, I don't think we have any other bits and bobs today. I think I did the birthday shout-out for this week. Yep. So let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... And this one comes from moderator Shigar via the Discord. Do you consider a cup a cone for drinks? I would say no, because generally speaking, you don't eat a cup when you're done. Whereas you're probably going to eat a cone. Unless it's made out of something inedible, but that sort of defeats the purpose of having a cone. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's have the answer of the day from a previous video. And this question was about who's your favorite Superman. And today's answer comes from Arnetra Baker. Tyler Hoechlin. He absolutely embodies Clark's kindness, empathy, and grace. And also his sweet, sweet abs. Alright, I added that part myself. But yes, I very much do enjoy the work that Tyler Hoechlin is doing on that show. In fact, Bitsy Tulloch, really good as Lois Lane as well. Generally the whole cast, although I can't comment on the... Was it Jonathan the recast? I can't comment on the second one because I haven't seen him yet. I haven't seen that season yet. I've been sort of putting off watching it because of there's a certain uncomfortable storyline that I don't really want to watch, but I'll watch it eventually. I'm very glad that when he first showed up on Supergirl, that they liked what he did enough to spin him off into his own show. Even although technically it's not the same character, but it is the same character because they decided late in the game that it was going to be a separate thing, but it didn't start off that way. Continuity's fun. Anyway, we got 4 good years, and now we're on to, is it David Cornswalt? Is that his name? I know I could look that up, but the new Superman as well, I think he looks really good. I'm liking the costume. I'm liking the fact that the colours are brighter and fresh. Honestly, I'm going to upset some people there, but I didn't like Henry Cavill as Superman. I've got nothing against Cavill himself. It's a little bit like how I didn't like Superman Returns much as a movie, but Brandon Routh I do like as an actor, and he's also a really good Superman as well. I could go on and on and on about that. I think with the right script and another chance to play the character the way that he probably feels it should be played, Henry Cavill could do great things, but Zack Snyder had a vision, and it wasn't a vision that I personally enjoyed. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. Up, up, and away. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.